order today. Ding. Doesn't ding very well, but so we'll start.
I found the bell, by the way.
Hey, where is it?
The morning crew did take the bell. They have sworn they would return that along with our banner.
Oh, nice. All right, so we're gonna have a prayer by Sean, thank you, then the pledge, and then the four-way test.
Randy, as quick as you can ask me to do it is as quick as I can Google. So here we go.
All right.
Please bow your heads. Dear Lord, we ask thee to bless all those gathered here today. Bless the meal which we will partake of and grant unto Rotarians health and strength and guide them as they continue to give Rotary service throughout the world. Amen.
Amen. And thank you. Pledge allegiance, if you would join me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Of the things we think, say, and do. Is it the truth?
Spiritual concern,
Will build
with goodwill and better friendships.
Be beneficial to all concerned. Thank you. Welcome to our guests. Welcome, Rotarians. We are a little thin today, but that's okay nevertheless. Our speaker, Annie, will be introduced by Mr. Isaac a little bit later.
Take this.
So give
That's all my signature.
it to Ross. I can't believe it. Welcome everyone to Noon Rotary.
Thank
Got any happy bucks today? Anybody happy?
One beer and
Joel, you happy down in Mexico? Give us some pesos. Anybody?
I got one, Ross, or two.
Right.
I'm happy one of our daughters got math student of the month. She's very good at English and very proficient in reading. So it was a big surprise to see her excelling in an area outside of her comfort zone. And our other daughter got her top braces off. So that's fun.
Right. Anybody else? You happy?
I am happy. Always a good day fishing, even when the fishing sucks.
Oh.
Sunday I went fishing on down Lake Pepin and I caught one perch in 5 hours.
Wow.
It wasn't big enough to keep. And I was fishing, I was fishing with some great people, my brother and a couple relatives. And so we had a good time talking and we had a couple beers, but no one caught more than one fish. It was pretty crummy. And it was when it was snowing, so there's all kinds of reasons, but it was still fun.
Good. Anybody else happy? Nobody's happy.
Not having a raffle unless you want to.
No raffle announcements. Anybody got any announcements?
Yes, I do actually have. We are starting to get on the golf tournament already for next year. Tentative date is August 2nd. And if anybody would like to participate and help with that, I would encourage you to contact me or Ross.
That'll be 2 losses here by that point.
Yeah.
But committee meetings.
At Triburn or? Yes.
I think so.
I helped last year. I'd be glad to help again.
Awesome, Joni. But you gotta turn your camera on.
I can't see you.
Don't listen to him, Joey. Let's see if he has any updates on the first giving.
Oh, yeah. First giving, Joni.
So yeah, first giving, we just got another email, Randy. You had signed paperwork the other day to get that up and going because they've made some concessions for us. And she just like 3 minutes ago sent another email. She's looking for another signature. But once that's done, we've jumped through every hoop we could and it should be up and running. As far as the IRS part goes, haven't heard anything from the IRS.
Not surprising there.
I'll sign it when I get back to the office.
All right.
I know I work my phone.
Anybody else? I guess I'll turn it over to Isaac to introduce our speaker.
I appreciate it. You are welcome. Bacon and potato.
Oh, thanks, Bill.
Thanks.
That's Bill.
Didn't look like bacon.
So let me begin by asking you all a few questions. Do your word choices have an impact on the people around you?
Yes.
Are you an influence?
You're asking a question.
You're not supposed to actually answer. This is
Rhetorical.
my part.
Rhetorical.
Are you an influencer looking to better yourself and your community? Could you use some actionable tools to remove obstacles that get in the way of living your best life? Can we mute Randy in the background? If you answered yes to any of those questions, you're in the right place. Our speaker today previously worked in investment banking for 9 years, owned and operated 2 fitness franchise locations, grew and led a direct sales team of 250 people. Annie is an award-winning author, has written 5 books, and has spoken internationally. She is a board member and a past president of the National Speakers Association, the Minnesota chapter. When not speaking, Annie can be found volunteering in the community, traveling with family, or walking or being walked with Peanut and Leo, her 2 little dogs. Helping us today live an exceptional life, please join me in welcoming from Burnsville, Minnesota / Florida, speaker, award-winning author, and human pineapple, Annie Meehan.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, you guys. I love Rotary. I was part of a Rotary for 5 years. I was part of the New Prague Rotary, and for a year and a half, I was part of the West St. Paul Rotary, and that was because I had a gym in New Prague. Originally, I bought a gym there, and then a year later, I built a gym in Lilydale, so right outside of St. Paul, and I love Rotary. I love what Rotary stands for. I love what Rotary does. I love that you pray. It is fine to answer yes to my questions when I'm answering them, even if they're rhetorical. I like it. But today, what we were going to talk about a little, and really, especially this is a small group, and I do have groups of size 6 to 6,000 that I've presented to. Business changed a lot in March of last year, but it's starting to pick up again, and I'm feeling very optimistic about what the future holds. But when Isaac and I talked, what we talked about is the topic path, detours, and possibilities. And this was my first book I wrote. And the reason it came out, so I don't live in Burnsville either. I need to update that bio. So I sold my house in Burnsville in October. I had lived there 25 years, raised my family there. I'm 28 years old, but I do have a 32-year-old, and that's a weird thing about kids and ages. But I do have a 32-year-old, a 26-year-old, and a 22-year-old. And we sold our house last October because we knew we wanted to sell within a year, and the market was hot. You kind of heard about my background. I spent 9 years at Piper Jaffray. From there, I stayed home for a little bit, and then we bought our first gym, built a second gym. And through the world of gym ownership, somebody asked me, what are you going to be when you grow up? And I said, oh, that's easy. In fact, they wanted to interview me for a commercial. And I said, they're like, we get that you love Snap and Advocare supplements, but who is Annie Meehan really? And I'm like, oh, I'm a female version of Tony Robbins. At that time, it was really the only high profile professional speaker that I knew of. And though today I would not say that same answer, Tony Robbins and I are not aligned the same. There's some great things that he does, but there's some very different things that I do. And so through that, somebody said, well, you got to get connected with National Speakers Association. And this book was important to me because I think we're all on a path. And so before I go too far into my short presentation, I just wanted to ask you, where did you think you were going to go when you were younger? Where are you now? And where do you see yourself in the future? And that has been a journey my whole life that I've asked. And it's partially my DNA of how I'm created is I'm always, what's next? What else can I do? What more can I do? How can I make a bigger difference? And that's just my personality. It's my mind. Whatever, I'm always thinking about where am I? Where was I? Where am I? And where can I go from here? And so that's what I want you to be thinking about as we talk today for just this brief little time. And so when I was being interviewed for this commercial, that woman asked me that. And then I told her, female professional speaker, and she said, have you been speaking? And the truth is I've been speaking for about 20 years. I started in the faith community. So I started speaking, people would be like, what's your story? You're kind of an interesting person. And so I started speaking with junior high kids, and then high school kids, and then middle school kids, and then women's ministry, and then couples ministry, and then women's retreats. And that was just kind of my natural, I had a rather horrific childhood. I'm the middle of 7 kids raised by a single mom in extreme poverty. And people don't envision people in America living in the kind of extreme poverty that we grew up in, but there was mental illness and addiction, and it was just a really unhealthy upbringing. So to come out of that and say, okay, that's where I came from, but does that define me? No. How do I rewrite that story? And so part of my big passion is helping other people. How can I help you rewrite your story? Whatever your story is about yourself or your life, if it doesn't serve you, how do we change that so you can get healthy and whole ultimately, so you can do exactly what Rotary does to serve others. So I'm very passionate about getting yourself healthy for the purpose of first that, but then being able to serve others. So, and then owning gyms, people would ask me, will you teach us about health and wellness, Annie? And how do we get healthy? And you're always so energetic and happy. And I can't afford a gym membership. Will you still teach me? Or I don't have a lot of time. Will you still teach me? And that was such a joy to me to realize that I had the privilege of helping people with my business, no matter how bad their day was, no matter how unhealthy they felt when they walked in the door. Everyone felt better when they left a gym, whether they wanted to come or not. And I love that. And I tell people, you know, I helped thousands, maybe even 10,000 clients owning those 2 gyms for 12 years, but I never helped anybody lose weight. I helped people change their mindset, change their habits, change their self-talk about how they look or how other people will judge them. And a side effect was weight loss. And that's why I know Joni, by the end, she is going to turn on her camera because she's going to realize it's not how we look, it's how we take care of ourselves. So it's how we show up, right? And so I just loved helping people. I loved watching people transform. And a side effect was weight loss. People lost a lot of weight, but weight's just a number on a scale. Nobody cares about that. Even if you think you care, what you care about really is energy or playing with your kids or grandkids or being healthy, all of that. So when I met this woman about the commercial, she said, you got to go to NSA, National Speakers Association, the Minnesota chapter. There's the national chapter. And I did just finish my term 2 years ago now being president of that organization. But I met a man named Mark and he said, go through the academy. And so I did right away. And when you become a professional speaker, the first thing people say every time you present, or very often, if not every time, do you have a book? You got to get a book. You should write a book. Oh my gosh, you should write your story. Oh, you have an incredible story. You should write a book. And personally, I don't like writing. I don't even like reading. At least I didn't. I have dyslexia. Some people call it a learning disability. I just call it a difference. But what it does is it makes everything harder for me when it comes to writing or reading. And things look different for me. I have been interviewed on 50 podcasts. I've never listened to a podcast. The way that my brain works, auditory learning is very hard. I watch a lot of videos and I do read books, but it's challenging. So because so many people ask me to write my book and write my story, how did you come from where you were to become who you are? I was like, fine, I'll write a book, but I'm not writing a book or about me. I'm writing a book about you. So this was my first book. And I wrote this book with the intent, I got to teach other people how to write their story. And a lot of people have cool stories in the world. Maybe we all have cool stories. But I also have been coaching people for about 5 years now on how to become a professional speaker. And a lot of people come to me and they go, Annie, I have an amazing story. I want to tell the world. And I say, well, that's great. You can become a public speaker, which is what I am when I'm at Rotary. I'm a public speaker. The difference is a professional speaker gets paid to speak. A public speaker gets in the front of the room to speak. People with great stories stand in front of rooms, or products to sell stand in front of rooms to tell their story, but they don't get paid. So that's public. Professional is when I get paid to walk into a conference, stand on a stage for an hour and teach people something out of my own wisdom, knowledge, and experience, and then I'm paid for it. So it's my job. So what I tell people is it's great you have a great story, but until you can hone your story through cancer, through divorce, through diagnosis, through heartbreak, through struggle, and hone some lessons out of it, that anybody, so when I speak, people say, oh, I've been divorced too. Oh my gosh, I know what you mean. Well, let me just tell you, I've never been divorced. But because of the way that I'm able to tell stories, people can relate with their own wounds. Other people have come up and said, oh my gosh, my mom died too. My mom's alive. She's 92 years old and active and fully alive, living in San Francisco. But if we tell our stories right about the lessons we learn through the struggles we go through up and down in our life, then they can apply to anyone's circumstance, whether it's a job loss or death, whatever it is. We all have struggles. So Paths, Detours, and Possibilities is full of questions, quotes, and short stories. And my point in writing this book was to pull out of you, what are your lessons? What are your stories? What have you gone through in life? And so I wrote it hoping other people, I'd say, oh, you want me to write a book? Why don't you go write a book? Because it's hard for me. It's really, really hard for me. And what happened with this book, which is so cool, if you will put yourself out there in your business or in your life, what happens is what you try to create and make a good impact will always be better, especially if you're a believer, which I love that you guys pray, because for me, my faith is really the bottom line of all my success is because I trusted God and did the work I had to do to become who he thought I could be. And so I wrote this so people would write their own story. But shortly after somebody bought it, they wrote to me and they said, you know what, my husband and I have only been married 5 years, but I bought your book and we took your book, packed a picnic for our 5-year anniversary, went on a date, and we had amazing conversation. We had gotten stuck in the, you pick up the milk, you take care of the kids, all of the to-dos of life. And your book helped us dream again, helped us imagine what our future looks like, what we love about each other. I was like, oh, that's so cool. I love that something I created, a tool, I would call it, is being used for even more than writing stories. The second powerful email I got about this book was that a woman wrote to me and she said, my teenage son doesn't talk at all. And I was really sad. I kept pushing him and he would just push him farther away. I'd ask him more questions. He'd get quieter. And I got your book and I just had this idea. I'm going to answer the first page. And then I put a Post-it note and I said, I answered page 4. Would you answer page 5? And I put it on his bed. She said, we've been passing your book back and forth for a year. He still doesn't talk to me much, but I know more about him and he knows more about me because of your book, which I used as a tool to get other people to write their stories. And the third and probably most powerful email about this particular book was a woman wrote to me and said, Annie, I heard you speak and my sister was dying. And so I bought your book and I took it into hospice and I interviewed my sister with all your questions. And I wrote down all her answers. And when she passed away, I was able to give your book full of her answers to her children. And so what I want to say about your path that you're on is, where are you? And know this, there will always be detours. There will always be things that don't, I kind of jokingly used to always say, who marries their high school sweetheart, has 2.3 kids, lives in a white picket fence happily ever after. But then people started raising their hands and I was like, oh my gosh, people really do live like that. Now that is not my experience, but some people do have that. But even those people have detours in their life. Most of us have bigger detours, ones we don't plan for, ones we don't see coming, but life happens, right? Life changes. I think all of us are in the midst of a detour with the pandemic. There's things that change that we couldn't have predicted, didn't know. And really the question isn't, will there be detours or what are the possibilities? The question is really, what will be your attitude, perspective, and choice through those detours? So that's what I'm really passionate about. And that's what I started with, but I want to go through kind of how this played out. So I started speaking, I wrote that book, and I'm all about being open to what's unfolding. I never saw myself, I always kind of fantasized about being a professional speaker. I just thought I'd be a 3rd grade teacher or a singer, even though I totally cannot sing. But I knew somehow I'd be on stage, but I didn't know that I'd be speaking all over the world in large audiences and just the amazing things that I've got to experience. But then I'm always like, what do I want to be open to? And what happened when I started speaking was, yes, people told me to write a book, but second, they'd be like, I want to be your best friend. Can we go out to coffee? Can we go to lunch? So my husband would come home at the end of the day and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I had the greatest day. And he'd say, well, what did you do? And I'd be like, I went to coffee with Susie and I had lunch with Jenny and I did this. And he'd say, well, that's great. Did you make any money? And I would say, well, no, but I made friends. I made new friends, honey. He was like, oh my gosh. And what I realized really was those audience members didn't really want me to be their best friend. What they wanted was someone to support them through a transition. So maybe a change in their health, maybe a change in their career, in their relationships, in their finances. And what they do is we'd go to lunch and they'd kind of ask me 100 questions like, how do I do this? How do I deal with this? Can I pick your brain? Have you ever had somebody say, can I pick your brain? At some point, your brain gets tired, like it has been picked over. And so what I really realized is people needed a coach. And though in the state of Minnesota, I don't know what it's like in Wisconsin, but in the state of Minnesota, there's no requirement to be a coach. So be careful if you do hire a coach ever, because people I meet all the time will be like, I'm a coach. And I'm like, what do you coach on? Oh, I just know things. So I just charge people to give advice, and some people pay them. So whatever, good for them. But what I would say is this, if and when you hire a coach, if you ever do, there's a time and place for a lot of people, maybe everyone in their life, to have a therapist, because life can be hard. But a coach is somebody who takes you from good to great. And what I realized through all those lunches were people really wanted a coach. They wanted someone to hold them accountable on their goals. They wanted someone to tell them they could do it. They wanted someone to show them how they did it. And so I went through a school called Learning Journeys International, and I became a certified life and wellness coach. My experience in owning a gym and working with supplements helped me on the wellness side. And my life coaching, I have 150 tools that I can work with clients on and do coaching. And so I never saw myself as a coach. I became a speaker, then I became an author, then I became a coach. And through that journey, people really asked me more and more to write my story. Annie, write your story. And honestly, I'd been working on a book called Dumpster to Dynasty for 20 years. And that book for me was about growing up in a physical dumpster. My mother's a hoarder. Growing up in a financial dumpster, being so poor that we often went without food, and growing up in a literal dumpster that we literally jumped into dumpsters to get food when we were little kids, and a spiritual and emotional dumpster because there was a lot of heaviness and sadness in our childhood. And I was speaking at a leadership conference, and a woman walked up to me afterwards and said, "You should write a book." And I showed her this book. And she said, "That is not a book. That is an inspirational journal," because mostly full of blank pages and questions and quotes. And she said, "Write your story." And I said, "Well, I've been writing this Dumpsters to Dynasty." And she said, "I don't like it." And I was like, "Really?" And she said, "I'm a publisher. I don't think you need to tell people about your sadness. I think you need to show us how you became you." And so that is the book that kind of launched me in the world. Isaac knows me a little bit from Facebook and from LinkedIn, but when this book came out, Be the Exception, in January, the cover came out in 2016 of January. And by March, I had booked $20,000 in speaking business, because a book gives you credibility. A book shows that you have content. And then this book in 2017 won a national award in the category of self-help. And Be the Exception was, the publisher asked me, "Annie, give us the 7 steps that you took in your life. What did you do out of this, your 6 brothers and sisters, to become who you are, to not end up in jail or addicted, and not only happy, but generous?" And sometimes people say, "I give because people gave to me." But my friends that know me well say, "Annie gives because the people didn't give to her. And she knows what that feels like. And she doesn't want anyone else to feel that." And so Be the Exception kind of launched my career as a professional speaker and made me be able to go national and international with my words. And I don't know that there's 7 steps either. If I ever redesign this cover, I would say there's 7 keys, because they're just ways of being. They're not doing more, they're being more, being honest with yourself. People are so self-critical, especially internally, maybe not out loud, but the thoughts you have, "I won't get it. It won't work out. I'm not good enough." And so when you transition out of that into what if I am good enough? What if what people said about me when I was little isn't true and I can become more? What if because one relationship was bad or one boss, I still could make a difference in the world? And so Be the Exception really became this powerful piece in my life that I could show people there. You can all be the exception. And part of your path is like, if someone asked about you, "Who are you?" If they were describing you to me, what would come to their mind when you think about people describing you? Is there a color that aligns with you? Is there a brand that aligns with you? Is there a symbol? Is there a personality? What aligns with you? And I think as a business owner, for those of you that are, it's so important to be recognizable. And so really I started out, I was blue. Everything was blue. I love blue. Blue is the #1 color to get someone to listen to you. Green is the #2 color. Pink is the #1 color if you want to make friends. So different colors. Red, a lot of people wear red, but red is about talking at people, not with people. And I'm very much, it's important to me to always, no matter the size of my audience, to always feel like it's conversational, it's connected. And so it started with this colors. Now it's more blue and orange. Orange is the color of happiness, and orange is the color of the butterfly. In fact, this was an incredible gift. I had hired a graphic designer, and he had designed 6 covers for me, and none of them aligned with me. And I called a girlfriend, I sent them to her. I said, "Are any of these feel like what my message is Be the Exception?" And she said, "No, but I'm running out the door to dinner. I'll call you later." I said, "No problem." And about 2 hours later, after she got home from dinner, she said, "You know what? I have this vision. You have transformed your whole life. And I really think you're an orange butterfly going out into the world. And this is what came to me." And she sent it to me. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's my cover." And she goes, "I swear God downloaded it in me for you. And so I just think cool things, when we're open, come to us in that path, even when things don't play out. And trust me, lots of things haven't played out for me. In fact, people often reach out to me and say, I want you to be on my sales team. You're so good at sales. I'm like, really what that means is I'm just super good at rejection. Like I get so many no's, but that's part of being a business owner. That's part of wearing multiple hats. We're the sales, we're the customer service, and we're the product. When I'm speaking, I'm the product. So I'm not even selling, buy these vitamins, you'll be healthier. I'm selling me. And so that rejection can feel very personal. But if I let it bring me down, I'll never get to where I'm supposed to be. So when Be the Exception came out, because I started in churches, they said, why isn't it Christian? And I said, I believe that all people deserve love, hope, healing, and forgiveness. And I don't feel limited. Plus, I feel like I have a very evangelical spirit to just say this has to be a Christian book. But a Catholic church, which I grew up Catholic, but I tend to go to non-denominational churches, called me and said, we love your book, but we want you to write a Bible study. And I'm like, I don't want to write a Bible study. I hate writing books. And they said, can you take your 7 steps and ask God what he says about them and create a companion guide? So this is a Bible study that can go with the book, Be the Exception. They can be done together or separately. Ideally, a book club or a Bible study would do both of them together. And I've had that experience a few times where they do the work and then they invite me in to speak and talk about them. And my first client, that Catholic church, bought 800 of my Bible studies. And so I also think saying yes to things that are hard always plays out, not right away, not always easily. I've been really blessed. I don't create until somebody will pay for what I have, because it is such work that to create these works and not have clients is hard. So I created this. And then my 4th book, somebody heard me, I do a lot of YouTube videos. I think I have over 250 videos on YouTube now. And I was talking about gratitude. A lot of people talk about the gratitude journal. Have you guys heard of the gratitude journal? Right? Oprah made it famous in the 80s. I was on Oprah in 1986, and she made it famous in the 80s. And she talks a lot about write gratitude at night and read it in the morning, be positive, be positive. And I think that's good. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I encourage people to start with the gratitude journal. But a gratitude journal is all about me. What did I get out of today? Did I have a place to sleep? Did I have a bed? Did I have a job? And so what I talked about on this video was, I said, I think that once we get gratitude down, once we figure that piece out, what we're grateful for, we have to move into generosity. What did you give away today? And giving away can be buying someone a cup of coffee or lunch or getting someone something. But I think giving away is quite simple, but taken for granted. I think we can give a smile away. I think you can give a listening ear to somebody over 70 or under 5 that repeats their stories over and over. Instead of telling them you already told me, say, what else happened? What were you wearing? What was it like? What did you have for lunch? Because that makes people feel valued when we listen to them and see them. And I think when we say you already told me, makes people feel really small. So we have to be careful. And so this book, I always say, is my favorite because it's basically blank. And I sold 150 of these to that company that was celebrating their 100-year anniversary. And they wanted their employees to focus more on generosity than themselves. So they loved what I was saying about that. And so I printed this one, and now that's gone out into the world. I was really grateful last year. I think it was like December 28th, like the end of the year, I lost 80% of my business in 2020. Basically, my full calendar got wiped out. And I was really down, and we had sold our house. I was losing my confidence, my home for 25 years. My business, just everything. Friends had changed because of political stuff. People got so angry at each other, and I kind of don't get involved in chaos or drama in my life. So I just kind of stepped away, and I got a call, I think December 28th, and a woman out of Florida had heard about my work, and she runs 15 groups to help women out of human trafficking. And she said, I want to use your Be the Exception book, Bible study, and gratitude journal to work with these women. And it was just what a gift, right? A lot of no's, a lot of rejection, a lot of loss. But in the midst of all of it, if I pay attention, if I'm willing to stay open and positive, there's always a gift. So I was super grateful for that, knowing my work's being used in really cool ways. And my Be the Exception book, I consistently get letters and calls and cards from people that have read it and tell me it changes their life. And I always have to say, my books don't change your life, but my books invite you to change your own life. You got to do the work. And then my most recent book is the Pineapple Principle. And it's because I think 3 years ago now, somebody called me a pineapple. It had to do with a cute poem. And now it became my symbol. So people know me as the pineapple person. People send me pineapple earrings and necklaces because the pineapple is the international symbol of hospitality. But the principle is about looking up. In a world where people are looking down, busy, distracted, or looking ahead, what if we just really look up and really look at each other? It's about wearing our crown and valuing ourselves. It's about when we get up in the morning and we feel like just laying in bed, turning off our cameras and eating donuts, getting up, drinking a glass of water, and going out for a walk. It's about deciding that we are worth it, and so is the world around us. And it's about being sweet on the inside and what we pour into other people and allow them to say back to us through our keyboard and through our words is kindness and encouragement and sweetness in a world that is desperate for that. And so that past detours and possibilities was the beginning of my journey of becoming a speaker, becoming a coach, and becoming an author. Today, I have an online course. I have the 5 books, and then I have 3 workbooks I've written on sales, leadership, and just living an exceptional life. And so I do all sorts of things from training of 6 people, one-on-one coaching, 2-on-1 coaching, to all the way up to large audience and in between speaking. But what I just wanted to talk to you about, and I'm happy to answer any questions, but is where did you think you would be when you were younger? Where are you at today? And where are you going? And if you would just take a minute, if you have a pen and paper, to write that down. What did you think you were going to be when you grew up? What are you actually doing right now? And where do you see your future? I stay open. I am spending 2 months in Fort Myers Beach, but this week I bought a villa on Venice Beach in Florida, and I will be moving there in October. And, life is a journey, and who knows where we're going to end up, but I will live every day to the fullest. I was supposed to go on a mission trip to Haiti in January, and 10 days before the mission trip, there was a father-son team leading us. The son got COVID, and so he couldn't go. And the father did 3 tests that were negative, and his 4th test came back positive. And 2 days later, he was in the hospital. 2 days later, he was on a ventilator, and he canceled the trip a day and a half before we were going. And less than a week after the trip was canceled, he died of COVID, a healthy 52-year-old man. And then a week later, my mentor in NSA died at 72. And just this week, I lost my dearest neighbor and friend of 25 years at 82. And what I know is life is short, and I'm going to live every moment of every day to the fullest. And I'm going to encourage other people to do the same thing. So if you guys have questions, comments, I would love to hear them.
Anybody? Any questions online? Joel? There's Joni.
Oh, Joni!
It's a great presentation.
Great presentation. So I took my time while you were listening to take advantage of, you talked about COVID a little bit. I worked with a guy who yesterday tested positive. So that's why I'm, but I'm at my daughter's house, right? So what do? You go raid her closet, find some new hair, put a little eyeliner on. So, alternative me, maybe. Or maybe it's just my daughter. I don't know. But very good topic. Very good topic. I do a lot of internal, I should say, a lot of internal looking for values. Yeah, I know, right? What do you
Good job.
know?
Why not? Why not, right? What the heck? How fun.
Any questions?
Where can we find your books, Annie?
Ideally, you will go to my website, which is anniemeehan.com, because on Amazon, they take 60% of the sales. You can buy them on Amazon, but if you go to anniemeehan.com and buy them, it says books and more. So it's my books, my coaching, my online courses are all on my website, which is just my name.
How do you spell that last name?
And they're excellent gifts for people. If people are feeling down, feeling sad, struggling, a lot of people have someone in their life they love that has dyslexia. I mean, people told me I was so stupid. I didn't know how to read till I was in 3rd grade. And so people look at me and go, okay, can you talk to my son? Can you talk to my daughter? Like, show them who you are, what you can become. And I'm like, absolutely. And labels and voices will keep us down, but they don't have to.
E-H-A-N. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, what?
Your last name, M-E-E-H-A-N?
H-A-N is in Nancy. Yep, exactly.
Super job. Thank you for spending time with us this afternoon.
Absolutely.
Very proud of you, Annie. Very proud of all you've done. Very proud.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, and connect on LinkedIn. I love to be with people on LinkedIn. I'm always trying to put out encouragement, blogs and videos and just silly things and important things and whatever it is. So please check me out on LinkedIn. I'm maxed out on Facebook. You can try to connect with me, but then you get a notice, Annie has too many friends. And then people write to me, how do you have too many? I'm like, I know. That's what happens when you're a public speaker, a professional speaker, let's just call it. So anything else?
I don't think, thank you very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Very good.
Thanks for having me.
Any other business for Rotary today? Seeing none, have a great day. Ding. Ding.